Have you ever wondered what life was really like behind those imposing medieval convent walls? What secrets did those silent cloisters hold? Who truly ran the show in a world where women held incredible power, yet were bound by solemn vows, step into the 12th century? Number 9. The Portress. You might think guarding a door is a simple job, but the Portress held a surprising amount of power in a medieval convent. She was the official gatekeeper, the literal barrier between the sacred enclosed world of the nuns and the bustling, often chaotic, outside her duties, extended far beyond simply turning a key. Portress was often an older, experienced nun, chosen for her good judgment and strong character. She was the convent's first line of defense, a living filter for all who sought entry or even just interaction with the sisters. Her post was usually in a small lodge or room directly beside the convent's main entrance. This was not a cushy assignment. Portress was expected to be constantly alert, listening for knocks, observing visitors, and determining who was permitted inside the enclosure. She had to recognize legitimate visitors, bishops, abbots, noble patrons, family members of the nuns, or authorized merchants, and politely but firmly turn away beggars, unauthorized travelers, or anyone deemed a distraction or a threat. Her decisions directly impacted the convent's security and its reputation. An ill-judged admission could lead to scandal, theft, or even violence. Beyond security, the Portress also managed the flow of goods and communications. Letters from family members, supplies from the local market, and messages from ecclesiastical authorities all passed through her hands. She would receive them, ensure they were addressed correctly, and then arrange for their delivery to the appropriate nun or department within the convent. This made her an unofficial communication hub. She was often the first person from whom the nuns received news of the outside world, even if she was bound by rules not to gossip or spread idle chatter. She had to be discreet and trustworthy, ensuring privacy for the nuns and integrity for the convent's dealings. Her hours were long. Convent gates were expected to be locked at certain times, often at dusk and reopened at dawn, but emergencies could arise at any hour. Portress had to be available for genuine emergencies, such as a sick relative requiring a nun's presence or an urgent message from a bishop. She lived a life of constant vigilance, always on duty. This constant interaction with the external world, even from a semi-isolated post, made her a vital link. She was the face of the convent to many outsiders, and her demeanor reflected upon the entire community. A rude or careless portress could alienate benefactors or create an impression of uncharitableness. Furthermore, the portress sometimes had duties related to the convent's charitable activities. If the convent had a specific almonry or provided food to the poor at the gates, she might oversee these distributions, or at least ensure that the beggars and the needy were dealt with in an orderly fashion. She would know the local poor, understand their needs, and help manage the limited resources the convent might allocate to charity. This blend of security, communication, public relations, and a touch of social work made her role far more complex than it first appeared. Her integrity was paramount, as she might handle valuables or be privy to sensitive information. The very sanctity of the enclosed life of the nuns depended on her unwavering diligence and sound judgment. Without a vigilant portress, the convent's peace and spiritual focus could be easily disturbed or compromised. Number 8. The Chantress. The Chantress, also known as the Precentrix, was the rockstar director of sacred music and liturgy within the medieval convent. Her role was absolutely fundamental to the spiritual life of the community, as the singing of the divine office and Mass formed the very heart of the nuns' daily routine. This wasn't just about beautiful voices. It was about precision, spiritual devotion, and the accurate preservation of centuries of musical tradition. Chantress was a highly skilled musician and scholar, responsible for leading the choir, teaching new melodies, and ensuring the complex liturgical calendar was perfectly followed. Her primary duty was leading the nuns in the 8 daily services, known as the Divine Office or Liturgy of the Hours, plus the celebration of Mass. From matins in the pre-dawn darkness to compline at night, the Chantress set the tone and pace. She would intone the first notes of hymns and psalms, setting the pitch and rhythm for the entire choir. The quality of the convent's singing was a point of pride and a reflection of its spiritual fervor. A strong, clear, and well-rehearsed choir, under the guidance of an excellent chantress, could attract patrons and enhance the convent's reputation for piety. Her voice often stood out, not for showmanship, but for its authority and ability to guide others. Beyond simply leading, the chantress was a dedicated teacher. She was responsible for instructing the younger nuns and novices in plain chant, the intricate, unharmonized melodic lines that constituted the bulk of medieval sacred music. This involved rigorous training in vocal technique, breath control, and, most importantly, the complex rules of liturgical singing. Nuns had to learn hundreds of chants by heart, understand their proper placement within the liturgy, and internalize the spiritual meaning of the texts. The chantress spent countless hours teaching notation from antiphonaries and graduals, which were large, illuminated choir books containing the chants for the entire year. These books were often precious works of art themselves, residing under her careful watch. The chantress also had to be a master of the liturgical calendar, which was far more complex than simply knowing when Christmas and Easter fell. It involved tracking saints' days, fasting periods, and the changing seasons of the church year, each with its specific set of chants and readings. She had to ensure the right antiphons, responsories, and psalms were sung on the correct days. This required deep knowledge of the church's rites and often involved consulting complex liturgical tables and rubrics. Any error could disrupt the spiritual flow of the convent and even be seen as disrespectful to God. Her responsibilities also extended to the care of the choir stalls, the choir books, and sometimes even the musical instruments, though instruments were less common in convent worship than in secular churches. She often had a designated seat of honor in the choir, a visible sign of her authority and importance. The chantress's skill was not just an aesthetic pleasure, it was a form of prayer, a vital spiritual discipline for the entire community. She literally set the rhythm of their spiritual lives, ensuring that every note, every word contributed to the collective devotion of the nuns. Her role was so central that without a capable chantress, the very core of the convent's existence, its worship, would falter. Number 7. The Infirmarian. The Infirmarian was the convent's dedicated nurse, healer, and carer, shouldering the immense responsibility for the health and well-being of every single nun. In an age before modern medicine, her knowledge of herbal remedies, basic wound care, and comforting the sick was absolutely vital. This was not a job for the faint of heart. It required compassion, resilience, and a deep understanding of traditional healing practices. Her office, the infirmary, was a separate part of the convent where sick or elderly nuns could receive dedicated care. Away from the communal dormitories, the infirmarian's daily duties were extensive. She would rise early to check on her patients, administering herbal concoctions for various ailments, from fevers and coughs to digestive issues. She was skilled in preparing poultices for infections, binding wounds, and offering basic first aid for injuries that might occur during daily chores. Her knowledge of medicinal plants was extensive, often passed down through generations within the convent or learned from ancient texts. Convent often maintained its own herb garden, and it was the infirmarian's duty to cultivate and harvest these plants, ensuring a constant supply of vital ingredients for her remedies. She knew which plants would soothe pain, reduce inflammation, or aid digestion. Beyond physical care, the infirmarian also provided spiritual comfort. Sickness in the medieval period was often viewed through a spiritual lens, and the Infirmarian understood the emotional and psychological toll. Illness took on a nun. She would sit with the sick, read from devotional texts, offer prayers, and provide a calming presence. For nuns facing terminal illness, she would ensure they received the last rites and prepared for their passing with dignity and spiritual peace. She was a confidant and a source of strength during times of vulnerability. The Infirmarian was also responsible for maintaining hygiene within the infirmary, a crucial task in preventing the spread of disease. She ensured clean bedding, supervised washing, and tried to maintain a sanitary environment, which was a significant challenge in medieval times. She managed the supply of medicines, bandages, and other necessities, often having to procure them from outside the convent, if her own garden or stores were insufficient. This sometimes meant interacting with local apothecaries or even seeking guidance from more experienced male physicians, although this was less common within the enclosed life. Her role was often physically demanding, especially during outbreaks of illness or epidemics. She might work day and night tending to multiple patients, administering treatments, and ensuring their comfort. She also cared for the elderly nuns, who often required constant attention, help with daily tasks, and specialized diets. The Infirmarian was a crucial figure in the convent's ability to sustain its community. Without someone dedicated to their health, the nuns would have suffered greatly, and the convent's ability to function as a spiritual and communal body would have been severely hampered. Her unwavering dedication to the well-being of her sisters was a testament to the convent's commitment to charity and care. Number 6. The cellarer. The cellarer was the convent's chief financial officer and quartermaster, responsible for all temporal affairs, including procuring food, managing supplies, overseeing property, and balancing the convent's budget. This was a position of immense trust and practical power, requiring shrewd business sense, meticulous organization, and a deep understanding of medieval economics. She was effectively the convent's chief operating officer, ensuring that every nun was fed, clothed, and housed, and that the convent's resources were managed efficiently. Her duties began with the very basics: food. The cellarer had to ensure a steady, ample supply of provisions for the entire community. This involved managing the convent's agricultural lands, overseeing the work of lay servants or tenants who tilled the fields, and negotiating with local farmers and merchants for grain, vegetables, meat, fish, and other foodstuffs. She would often supervise the convent's own brewing, baking, and dairying operations. This wasn't just about having enough. It was about ensuring a balanced, albeit often simple, diet that adhered to monastic fasting rules and dietary restrictions. She had to understand storage techniques to prevent spoilage and manage harvests effectively. Beyond food, the cellarer was responsible for all other material necessities. This included purchasing fabric for habits, candles for the chapel, parchment and ink for the scriptorium, fuel for heating and cooking, and materials for building maintenance and repairs. She had to keep careful accounts of all income and expenditure, ensuring the convent lived within its means. This often involved complex bookkeeping, tracking rents from tenants, donations from patrons, and the sale of any surplus goods the convent produced. Her financial acumen directly impacted the convent's solvency and its ability to maintain its way of life. Poor cellarer could bankrupt the convent, while a skilled one could ensure its prosperity and stability. The cellarer also supervised a significant number of lay servants and workers. These could include cooks, bakers, gardeners, farm laborers, and even craftsmen. She was responsible for their wages, their living conditions, and ensuring they performed their duties correctly. This required strong leadership and management skills, as well as the ability to resolve disputes among the staff. She was also often the point of contact for external agents, such as landlords, tax collectors, or even legal representatives if the convent had property disputes. She had to be adept at negotiation and legal matters, protecting the convent's assets. Her physical presence was often required in various locations, supervising work in the fields, checking the granaries, inspecting the kitchens, and managing the storerooms. She had to be practical, organized, and vigilant against waste or pilfering. The cellarer was often chosen for her intelligence, trustworthiness, and administrative abilities, as her mismanagement could lead to hardship for the entire community. Her role was less about spiritual leadership and more about ensuring the fundamental temporal survival and comfort of the convent, laying the practical foundation upon which all other spiritual activities could flourish. Without her diligent work, the nuns would quite literally go hungry, cold, or without shelter. Number 5. The sacristan. The sacristan held one of the most sacred and visually apanal roles within the medieval convent hierarchy. She was the guardian of the convent's most precious and holy objects, responsible for the care and preparation of the chapel, the altar, the relics, the sacred vestments, and all the items used during Mass and the divine office. Her duties ensured that the convent's spiritual heart, its church, was always pristine, adorned appropriately, and ready for worship. This position demanded meticulous attention to detail, profound reverence, and a deep understanding of liturgical practices. Every day, the sacristan's work began early, preparing the altar for the first services. This involved laying out the correct altar cloths, ensuring the chalice, paten, and other vessels were clean and in their proper places, and lighting the candles. She was responsible for keeping the chapel immaculately clean, sweeping floors, dusting surfaces, and ensuring all parts of the sacred space were free from dirt. This was not merely about neatness. It was an act of devotion, honoring God by maintaining His dwelling place. Her care extended to the convent's collection of sacred vestments, the robes worn by the priest during Mass and by the nuns during certain services. These were often richly embroidered, made of fine fabrics, and could be quite valuable. The sacristan was responsible for their cleaning, repair, and proper storage, ensuring they were ready for use on the correct feast days, as different colors and styles of vestments were used for different seasons of the liturgical year. She also had charge of the convent's relics, precious objects believed to be connected to saints, which were often housed in elaborate reliquaries and displayed with great reverence. Protecting these relics from damage or theft was a solemn duty. The sacristan also played a crucial role in the timing of the day. She was responsible for ringing the bells to announce the start of each of the 8 daily offices, as well as Mass, and for special occasions like funerals or important feasts. She had to know the exact schedule and ensure the bells were rung precisely, guiding the nuns through their rigorous daily routine of prayer. This required a good sense of time and consistency. She was also in charge of ensuring the lamps or candles used throughout the chapel and parts of the convent were properly fueled and lit, a constant task in the dim medieval interiors. Beyond these practical tasks, the sacristan was often consulted on matters of liturgical ceremony and custom. Her deep knowledge of the church calendar, the specific rites, and the appropriate vestments and adornments made her an invaluable resource. She might also oversee the making or purchase of new liturgical items, working with artisans to create beautiful crucifixes, candlesticks, or processional crosses. Her office could be a space of quiet beauty, filled with the scent of beeswax and incense reflecting the spiritual devotion she brought to her work. Without the sacristan, the very rituals that defined the convent's spiritual life could not have been performed with the necessary reverence, order, and visual splendor. Number 4. The novice mistress. The novice mistress was the chief educator and spiritual guide for the newest members of the convent, the novices. Her role was absolutely critical in shaping the future of the community, as she was responsible for transforming young women from the secular world into devout, disciplined nuns. This required immense patience, spiritual wisdom, strong disciplinary skills, and a deep understanding of the rule of the order. She was essentially the convent's head of admissions, training, and spiritual formation. When a young woman entered the convent as a postulant and then progressed to a novice, she was placed entirely under the care and authority of the novice mistress. Her first and most important task was to thoroughly instruct the novices in the rule of the order, whether it was the Benedictine rule, the Augustinian rule, or another. This involved not just memorization, but understanding the spirit and practical application of vows like poverty, chastity, and obedience. The novice mistress explained the daily schedule, the intricacies of the divine office, the proper monastic customs, and the etiquette of community living. She was a living embodiment of the convent's traditions and spiritual ideals. Her instruction was not merely academic, it was deeply practical and spiritual. She taught the novices how to live a life of prayer, how to meditate, and how to participate fully in the liturgy. She also taught them the practical skills necessary for communal life, such as silence, humility, and the importance of manual labor. The novices would spend their days in the novice house, a separate part of the convent, where the novice mistress oversaw every aspect of their lives, from their studies to their chores. She disciplined them when necessary, guiding them with firmness and compassion towards a life of spiritual rigor. A crucial part of her role was discernment. It was the novice mistress's responsibility to assess whether a novice had a genuine vocation to the monastic life. This involved close observation of their character, their willingness to embrace the rigors of the rule, and their spiritual progress. She held regular conferences with each novice, listening to their struggles, offering guidance, and helping them to overcome doubts or difficulties. If a novice was deemed unsuitable, it was the novice mistress who would advise her to leave the convent. This decision was not taken lightly, as it affected both the individual and the future of the community. The novice mistress also ensured that the novices understood the importance of obedience to the abbess and the prioress, and the communal nature of monastic life. She prepared them for the solemn vows they would eventually take, explaining the lifelong commitment involved. Her influence was profound, shaping the spiritual character and practical skills of every new nun. Without a dedicated and wise novice mistress, the convent would struggle to replenish its ranks with well-formed, committed sisters, threatening its long-term viability and spiritual integrity. She was the gardener of souls, nurturing the seeds of faith into mature spiritual lives. Number 3. The sub-prioress. The sub-prioress was the third highest authority in the convent, serving as the direct assistant to the prioress and standing ready to take over the prioress's duties if she was absent or incapacitated. This position required not only administrative skill, but also a deep understanding of monastic discipline and the daily spiritual life of the nuns. She was a crucial link in the chain of command, ensuring the smooth operation of the convent's spiritual and communal routines. Her role was often focused on the direct oversight of the nuns' daily conduct and spiritual observance. Her primary duty was to assist the prioress in managing the daily life of the convent. This often meant overseeing the communal observance of the rule, ensuring that nuns adhered to the prescribed hours of silence, prayer, and work. She would monitor the refectory during meals, ensuring proper decorum and silence, and oversee the dormitory, making sure nuns retired and rose at the appointed times. The sub-prioress was frequently the one who issued minor permissions or dealt with small infractions of the rule, often acting as a first point of contact for nuns seeking guidance or reporting issues. She was a figure of authority who was present in the daily life of the sisters, providing guidance and gentle correction. In the absence of the prioress, the sub-prioress would step into her shoes, taking on the responsibility for leading the divine office, presiding over communal meals, and managing any immediate disciplinary matters. This required her to possess many of the same qualities as the prioress: maturity, wisdom, spiritual gravitas, and a thorough understanding of the convent's constitution. She needed to be able to make decisions confidently and maintain order within the community without direct supervision from the abbess or prioress. Her ability to step up ensured continuity of leadership and prevented disruption in the convent's rigorous schedule. The sub-prioress often had a pastoral role, offering spiritual advice and encouragement to individual nuns. She might be approached by sisters struggling with their vows, personal difficulties, or spiritual dryness. Her proximity to the community made her an accessible figure for counsel, balancing the strictures of the rule with compassionate understanding. She needed to be a good listener and a wise counselor, helping nuns navigate the challenges of monastic life. This also meant she was a direct channel of information to the prioress and abbess regarding the general spiritual health and morale of the community. Her position also involved practical oversight. She might assist the prioress in managing the junior nuns or the novice sisters, ensuring their proper integration into the community. She would also help in maintaining the order and cleanliness of communal spaces, such as the cloisters or the chapter house. The sub-prioress was not merely a ceremonial role, she was a hands-on manager and spiritual guide, essential for maintaining the discipline, harmony, and daily functioning of the convent. Without her, the prioress would be overwhelmed, and the communal life of the nuns would lack a crucial layer of immediate oversight and support. Number 2. The prioress. Prioress was the second in command, the abbess's primary deputy, and often the driving force behind the day-to-day spiritual and practical management of the medieval convent. While the abbess held ultimate authority, the prioress was the one who directly implemented decisions, enforced discipline, and ensured the smooth running of the convent's internal affairs. Her role was demanding, requiring a formidable combination of spiritual depth, administrative acumen, and a firm but compassionate leadership style. She was effectively the chief operating officer and chief disciplinary officer wrapped into one. Her most significant responsibility was the direct supervision of the nuns' observance of the monastic rule. This meant ensuring that all sisters adhered to the strictures of silence, poverty, obedience, and chastity. Prioress would conduct daily inspections, monitor behavior in the refectory, dormitory, and cloister, and ensure proper decorum during the divine office. She was the one who administered most of the immediate disciplinary actions for minor infractions, offering corrections and penances to maintain order and spiritual focus within the community. Her presence was constant and supervisory, a watchful eye ensuring that monastic ideals were upheld. The prioress also served as the primary interface between the abbess and the rest of the community. She communicated the abbess's decisions and directives to the nuns, and conveyed the nuns' concerns or needs back to the abbess. She often presided over daily chapters where the rule was read, spiritual teachings were given, and minor disciplinary matters were addressed. This required strong communication skills, the ability to command respect, and a deep understanding of the individual personalities within the convent. She acted as a vital buffer and intermediary, ensuring that the abbess's authority was translated into practical daily governance. In the absence of the abbess, whether for travel, illness, or other duties, the prioress assumed full leadership of the convent. This could involve presiding over important meetings, receiving visitors of rank, or even managing external financial matters. She had to be prepared to step into the role of chief executive at a moment's notice, demonstrating her capacity for comprehensive leadership. This often meant she was being groomed for the abbess's position, herself having proven her capabilities through years of diligent service. Beyond discipline and administration, the prioress also had significant spiritual responsibilities. She was often a spiritual guide and confessor to many of the younger or less experienced nuns, providing counsel and encouragement. She embodied the spiritual ideals of the order, serving as a role model for piety and devotion. Her leadership was not just about rules, but about fostering a vibrant spiritual life within the community. Prioress was the bedrock of the convent's internal stability and spiritual cohesion. Her daily vigilance, administrative prowess, and spiritual guidance were indispensable, making her position second only to the abbess in terms of direct influence over the convent's functioning and the lives of its sisters. Number 1. The Abbess. The abbess was the ultimate authority figure in a medieval convent, wielding immense spiritual, temporal, and often political power. She was the mother, the ruler, and the chief spiritual guide of her entire community of nuns, effectively functioning as a queen within her own domain. Her election was a momentous occasion, and her responsibilities were vast, encompassing everything from spiritual guidance to shrewd financial management and navigating commerce. Her position was arguably the most powerful a woman could hold in medieval society outside of royalty. First and foremost, the abbess was the spiritual mother of her convent. She was responsible for the spiritual well-being of every nun, guiding them in their vows, overseeing their adherence to the monastic rule, and fostering a communal life of prayer and devotion. She often delivered spiritual instruction in the chapter house, ensuring that the nuns understood the theological foundations of their faith and the meaning of their sacred rituals. Her piety and wisdom were expected to inspire the entire community. She was responsible for the spiritual formation of the novices, even if directly overseen by the novice mistress. Beyond the spiritual, the abbess was a formidable temporal ruler. She managed the vast estates that often belonged to wealthy convents, overseeing agricultural production, collecting rents from tenants, and dealing with legal disputes concerning convent lands. This involved significant financial acumen, as she had to balance the convent's budget, invest wisely, and ensure the economic stability of the institution. She supervised all the convent's officers, from the cellarer managing supplies to the sacristan tending the chapel, holding ultimate responsibility for their performance. Her good management was crucial for the convent's survival and prosperity. The abbess was also a significant political figure. She was often chosen from noble families, giving her powerful connections to the aristocracy and even royalty. She interacted directly with bishops, archbishops, and sometimes even the Pope, representing her convent's interests and negotiating on its behalf. Kings and queens often corresponded with abbesses, seeking their prayers or counsel and respecting their authority. An abbess might be called upon to attend ecclesiastical councils or advise secular rulers. She was the convent's ambassador to the outside world, fiercely protecting its rights and privileges. This external representation was a critical aspect of her power, as she alone could speak for the community in formal settings. Her election, often by the nuns themselves, was a democratic process within the convent walls, but it had to be approved by the local bishop or even the monarch. Once elected, her authority was absolute within the convent, second only to God and the highest ecclesiastical authorities. She lived in a private apartment within the convent, reflecting her elevated status, and often had her own staff of personal attendants. Despite the burdens of leadership, her role also offered immense intellectual and spiritual opportunities, as she oversaw the convent's library, scriptorium, and intellectual life. The abbess was the undisputed leader, protector, and guiding light of her convent, a testament to the powerful and diverse roles women could hold in the medieval world.